Welcome to Revisit Books podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day. Welcome back. We're getting into a book today that is, well, it's pretty profound. It's called The 10 Types of Human, and it's by a human rights lawyer named Dexter.
It's an incredible piece of work, and that's the key thing to remember: his background. He wasn't just in an academic lab. He spent, over 25 years on the front lines of human rights law?
Right, dealing with just the most extreme situations you can imagine.
Exactly. Genocide, human trafficking, all of it. So this book comes from decades of that hands-on experience, plus research across, I think, 4 continents. It's grounded in a way that, a lot of behavioral science just isn't.
So that's what makes it feel so urgent. He's not really asking that old question, are we good or bad? He's asking something much deeper, which is, who is inside us?
Yeah, and he kind of dismisses the whole nature versus nurture debate right from the start.
He calls it a false dichotomy, doesn't he?
He does. Because it's never either. It's always both. It's this complete entanglement of what we are biologically and how the world we live in shapes that biology. He's very clear that explaining our evolutionary drives isn't an excuse for bad behavior.
It's a fact, not a justification.
Precisely.
So let's talk about the big idea at the heart of the book, this concept of modularity, because it's pretty fundamental to understanding these 10 types.
It is. It basically throws out that old idea of the brain as like one single computer, a central processor doing everything.
Right.
The modern view, the one he builds on, is that the brain is much more fragmented, but in a really smart way. It's a collection of these highly specialized modules.
So like apps on a phone, not one big operating system, but a bunch of specific apps for specific jobs.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And these apps, these modules, they evolved over millions of years to solve very specific recurring problems our ancestors faced.
Problems related to what? Survival.
Survival, definitely. And reproduction. How to find a mate, how to navigate the social group, how to spot a threat, the fundamental drives. And these modules are running in the background all the time, often completely unconsciously.
Which brings up the big question, right? If these ancient programs are running us, what does that mean for free will? Are we just puppets?
Well, that's what's so great about the book's mission. He argues the exact opposite. He says, yes, the types are in us, there are instincts. But by dragging them into the light, by making the unconscious conscious, that's where our power lies.
So if you know the program, you can kind of debug it.
You can intervene, you can challenge that automatic response, you can see how power structures use these instincts against us, and you can choose to act differently. It's really a framework for self-awareness.
It makes it feel less like a mystery and more like, a machine you can learn to operate.
Exactly. If you know the engine, you can tune the car.
So before we jump into the types themselves, who is this for? If you're listening, why should this be on your radar?
I'd say this is for you. If you're someone who wants knowledge that's, quick to get, but also really deep, you're not happy with just the headlines. You want to know the why.
The why behind what? Office politics or?
Office politics, global conflicts, your own moral choices, anything really. It's for anyone who's ever looked at the world at the mix of, incredible kindness and incredible cruelty and just felt overwhelmed.
And it gives you those aha moments, the surprising facts that suddenly make things click.
For sure. And it really sits at that cool intersection of evolutionary biology, neuroscience, and human rights law. It gives you a structure, these 10 types, to make sense of it all, to find some clarity in all the noise.
The kind of clarity that lets you see people, including yourself, as these complex, messy systems, not just good guys and bad guys.
That's the goal. So, shall we get into the first one?
Let's do it. Let's start with maybe the most primal one of all. The kinsman.
The kinsman. Its rule is simple and absolute. Protect your own genetic line. Your family comes first. From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes perfect sense.
Of course. Your genes survive if your relatives survive.
And this drive is so powerful, it can just completely override rational thought. It's hardwired into us.
He uses these really intense thought experiments to show this, right? The burning house scenario is the big one.
Oh, it's brutal. Yeah, you have to imagine your house is on fire and you can only save one of your 2 children. We'll call them Ruth and Lisa. You can save one, but the other will die. Or you can try to save both and probably lose them both.
It's an impossible choice.
It's agonizing. And it's designed to show how the kinsman module just shorts out. Its whole purpose is to prioritize kin over non-kin. But when all the options are kin, it freezes. The algorithm breaks. It's moral paralysis.
But that paralysis vanishes the second a stranger is introduced into the equation. And we see this bias in like everyday life too, right? With charity.
Absolutely. Dias cites research showing this incredible bias toward proximity. People find it really, really hard to donate to a charity helping kids in, say, a faraway country.
Even if their dollar would go further there.
Even if you tell them their money will help twice as many children, they'll still prefer to give it to a local charity helping fewer kids.
Because they're closer to home, closer to my tribe.
Exactly. It's the kinsman's logic at work. And it's a perfect lead-in to the next module, which is all about the limits of that feeling, the perceiver of pain.
This is our empathy module, essentially. We're wired to feel for others, but, and this is the crucial part, that system can get overloaded. Really overloaded.
Yeah, this is where the psychologist Paul Slavic's work on psychic numbing comes in. When we're faced with suffering on a massive scale, thousands of casualties in a report, or the book's example of 21,000 enslaved children in West Africa, our compassion doesn't scale up.
It collapses.
It totally collapses. It's a kind of cognitive paralysis. The brain just can't compute that much tragedy. So as a defense mechanism, it just shuts down. An utter collapse of compassion, as Dias puts it.
And that shutdown is a disaster for actually doing anything to help.
It is. And he makes this so real with the story of single boy, Anthony, an 11-year-old in Ghana sold into slavery on Lake Volta.
And the detail that just sticks with you is the price.
The price tag. Around 80 Ghanaian cedis, which is, what, $20 US?
$20 is just, it's horrifying, the banality of that number.
It is. And it shows the failure of the perceiver of pain perfectly. We can feel for one boy, Anthony. We can be outraged by the $20 price. But when you say multiply that by 21,000, our brains just, they can't. The number becomes an abstract statistic and the moral urgency is lost.
So our empathy is like a spotlight, not a floodlight. It works best on a single, relatable story.
That's the evolutionary design. Our ancestors dealt with threats in their small group, not global crises. Which, speaking of immediate threat assessment, brings us to this amazing neurological quirk called blindsight.
Blindsight is one of those things that just makes you question everything. This is the story of patient a doctor who had a stroke and was left completely blind.
Clinically blind, couldn't consciously see a thing. But the researcher, Dr. Pegna, was testing him, and he noticed something odd. Patient A said, "I don't see anything, but I have a strong impression you're smiling."
Wait, so he was blind, but he could see emotion? How does that even work?
Well, this is the amazing part. The brain scans showed he was using a different, much older neural pathway. The information from his eyes was bypassing the main visual processing center.
The part that was damaged by the stroke.
Right, and instead it was taking a shortcut straight to the amygdala.
The emotional hub. So it skips the slow conscious analysis and goes right to the brain's alarm system.
Exactly. It's a backup system. It's not for seeing details, it's for seeing threats and social cues. Is that person angry? Are they friendly? It's proof of how critical that rapid social assessment was for our survival.
Wow. It's like a subconscious danger detector.
It is, and it shows how deep that programming for social connection runs.
Oof. Shifting gears a bit, let's move to the module that handles the biggest threat of all, our own mortality. This is the Tamer of Terror.
The Tamer of Terror deals with what's, the fundamental human paradox. We know we're alive, but we also know it won't last. And that knowledge creates this constant low-level anxiety.
And we have to manage that anxiety somehow. The framework for this is called terror management theory, or TMT.
Right. TMT says we cope with this fear of death in two main ways. First, we try to build up our self-esteem to feel like we're valuable. And second, we cling really tightly to our cultural worldview, our beliefs, our laws, our nation.
Because if our culture is immortal and we're a valuable part of it, then some part of us becomes immortal too. It's symbolic immortality.
Precisely. And the book has this legendary experiment with the Arizona judges that shows just how powerfully this works.
Oh, this one is chilling. Remind us how it worked.
So researchers took a group of judges and subliminally primed them with words related to death, flashing words like coffin on a screen so fast they couldn't consciously read them.
They weren't even aware they'd seen it.
Not at all. Then they asked these judges and a control group to set bail for a woman accused of prostitution. The results were stark.
The death-primed judges were way harsher, weren't they?
Significantly harsher. By punishing someone who broke a cultural rule, they were unconsciously reinforcing their own worldview. They were shoring up their defenses against that existential terror. Their Tamer of Terror made them more rigid, more punitive.
which is a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
That a judge's sentence might have less to do with the law and more to do with their own unconscious fear of death.
It raises huge questions. And the tamer builds these psychological walls everywhere. But sometimes people have to build them under the most extreme conditions imaginable, which brings us to the story of Dawn Fazey Webster.
An incredible story. She has locked-in syndrome.
Which means she's fully conscious, fully aware, but almost completely paralyzed. The only thing she can really control is blinking one eye. They call it being walled in alive.
It's just unimaginable.
And what's fascinating is the disconnect between what healthy people think that would be like and what patients like Dawn actually report. Healthy people assume life would be meaningless.
Oh, that's not what she says.
Not at all. They know their body is a jail, but their sense of self, their mind, is intact. And they find meaning. Dawn's achievements are just monumental. She earned a university degree, a master's. She was accepted to a PhD program.
All by blinking.
All by blinking, at a rate of about 50 words an hour. Can you imagine the persistence? The thousands and thousands of blinks for a single essay?
That's the tamer of terror at work in its purest form. Constructing meaning, one blink at a time, just refusing to give in to despair.
It shows that meaning isn't about what you can physically do, it's about what you mentally construct. She found meaning in the smallest possible action.
Let's switch to a module that's about our connection to others, the ostracizer. This is the one that proves social pain is real pain.
Oh, it's absolutely real pain. The ostracizer is our internal alarm for social rejection. And for our ancestors, being kicked out of the tribe wasn't just embarrassing, it was a death sentence.
You're out, you're eaten.
That's the line from the book about the goby fish outside the coral. It's the perfect analogy. And the research, like Kip Williams's cyberball experiments, shows this so clearly.
That's the one where they have people play a virtual ball tossing game.
Yeah, and even though you know the other players are just computer animations, when they stop throwing the ball to you, it hurts. Brain scans show the same regions light up that process, physical pain.
And it hurts everyone, right? It's not about being sensitive or having low self-esteem.
Exactly. The initial sting of rejection hurts us all about the same, which tells you it's a fundamental, hardwired system designed for social control. If being excluded is painful, you'll work hard to conform and stay in the group's good graces.
And that's where it gets dangerous, because the group can use that threat to enforce its norms, whether those norms are good or bad.
The story of Kathy Bolkovec is the perfect and devastating example of this.
The police officer from Nebraska who went to work as a peacekeeper in Bosnia.
Right. And she discovered that many of the international personnel, the very people sent there to keep the peace, were involved in human trafficking. It was this corrupt, unspoken rule of the group.
And she blew the whistle. She broke the code of silence.
She did. And what was her reward for telling the truth? She was excluded from the group, fired, discredited. The system weaponized the ostracizer against her to protect itself.
It shows the incredible price of defiance. You don't just lose your job, you lose your tribe, your safety net.
Her story shows that true moral courage often means having to consciously fight that deep, primal need to belong. It's a huge step beyond simple instinct.
And that leads us into some of the darker aspects of our nature with the aggressor. Dias makes a really important distinction here between different kinds of aggression.
Yes, this is crucial. He separates reactive aggression from instrumental aggression. Reactive is what we usually think of. It's hot, defensive, an act of rage or fear. Protecting your home, your family.
Instrumental.
Instrumental aggression is cold, it's calculated, it's violence used as a tool to achieve a goal status, power, wealth. The book uses the example of Jan Hus, the reformer, being burned at the stake.
That wasn't an act of rage.
No, it was a political tool. It was instrumental aggression designed to crush dissent and consolidate the church's power. The burning was a means to an end.
But the book also says we have a natural aversion to killing. It's psychologically damaging. It can cause PTSD. So how does the aggressor get around that?
That aversion is strong, but it can be worn down. There's this study he talks about, the bug killing paradigm. They had participants kill bugs in a little machine.
And what they found was that once a person made that initial kill, it got easy.
Much easier. That first act acted like an inoculation against their natural aversion. And for some people, it was worse than that. Once that barrier was broken, they started to crave the cruelty. It became reinforcing.
That's deeply disturbing. It suggests violence isn't just for a few bad apples.
It suggests the capacity is there in many of us, given the right context. And you see that play out in the most brutal environments, like with the child soldiers in the Central African Republic.
Their inhibitions just completely collapse under the horror of their situation.
Right. For these kids, life is just misery and fear. So this phenomenon, the combat high, becomes like a drug. The adrenaline rush from violence provides a temporary escape from their unbearable reality.
So it's instrumental aggression, but the reward is just a moment of psychological relief.
It's a temporary fix that creates this horrible, addictive cycle. The book tells the story of Sarah, a 14-year-old girl who joined a militia. And she talks about seeing a boy she knew and having this internal battle, wondering, am I a killer now? That's her innate aversion fighting a battle against the aggressor module, which is screaming that this is what she has to do to survive.
A battle that survival usually wins.
It often does.
This is all getting pretty dark. Does the book offer any counterbalance? Any modules for good?
It does, absolutely. Let's touch on the nurturer and the rescuer. The nurturer is that powerful drive to care for and protect the young, but it can get twisted.
How so?
Well, think about a practice like female genital mutilation. To an outsider, it's just horrific, pure harm. But Dias explains that within that cultural context, it's a tragic conflict of modules.
A conflict between the nurturer or the ostracizer.
Exactly. The nurturer and the parent wants the best for their child's future. But if the tribal norm says an uncut girl can't get married, can't have a future, can't be part of the group, then the parent sees the procedure as the lesser of two evils.
Physical harm now to prevent social death later.
It's a heartbreaking instrumental calculation. It's not driven by malice, but by a hijacked, nurturing instinct.
And then there's the rescuer, which seems to act in direct opposition to the kinsman.
It really does. The kinsman says, help your family. The rescuer says, help a stranger, even at great personal risk. The story of Vasily is incredible.
It's a man who drove a truck full of trafficked girls across Siberia to save one of them, a woman named Lena who he barely knew.
He was facing down criminals, risking his life. There was no genetic reward, no obvious benefit. It was pure altruism. The book suggests that because he had a history of trauma himself, his empathy was so profound that it overrode everything else. He was doing for her what he wished someone had done for him.
So we have all these competing forces inside us, the kinsman versus the rescuer, the ostracizer versus our conscience.
That's the inescapable truth of it. We are walking paradoxes. We compete and we cooperate. We want to stand out, but we're terrified of being unfriended.
So where does that leave us? Are we just stuck in this constant internal battle?
No, and this is the book's final, most important point. It is not about determinism. It's about awareness. The instincts are the starting point, not the destination.
The fact that we can think about them, that we can have this conversation, is what makes the difference.
That's the stuff of life. That moment between the instinctual push, the flash of anger from the aggressor, the fear from the ostracizer, and our conscious, reflective action. That's where our freedom lies.
So knowing about psychic numbing helps us fight it. Knowing how the aggressor works helps us guard against it.
Yes. We can choose to focus our empathy on the single story, the $20 child, and use that feeling to fuel rational, large-scale action. We can learn to recognize these modules in ourselves and in society and decide not to be steered by them blindly.
So the ultimate takeaway is really one of proactive self-awareness.
It's a call to action. We're complicated and we're flawed, but we are not prisoners of our programming. Knowing the map of our own minds is the first step toward choosing a better path.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. I hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.